Meeting to order. And thank you. Call for citizens' comments. Any citizens' comments? Any comments from any of the council members before we start? Hearing none, the approval of the January 27th, 2025 technical committee meeting summary. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Thank you. That's Leanne, right?
Yes.
Thank you, Leanne. Motion and a second. Any opposed? No. Any abstentions? So carried. Thank you very much. Communications and announcements, Brian.
Before we do that, should we do welcome and introductions in case there's
thank you very much.
people here at the table, Dennis?
Yeah, that's fine with me. So we'll go around, we'll do welcome and introductions. My name is Dennis Doyle. I'm the planning director of the county and also the director of the Transportation Council. Pass it down.
I am Michael Bodette with the New York Thruway Authority.
I'm Brett Igo. I'm a civil engineer at the Ulster County DPW.
Ed Pine with Ulster County DPW.
Alexandra Fairley, New York State DOT.
Brian Slack, Ulster County Transportation Council.
And Chris, Ulster County Transportation Council.
And then on the Zoom call, I'm gonna ask Chris to call you and then if you'd introduce yourself.
Leanne Thornton,
Leanne Thornton Sorgetes.
James Quigley,
James Quigley, Town of Ulster.
Nancy Zhu. So, sorry. Nancy,
Nancy Zhou, Thruway Authority.
Shelley Johnston,
Good morning. I'm Shelley Johnston with Creighton Manning Engineering.
Emily Flynn,
Emily Flynn, City of Kingston.
and Erin Ewan.
Erin Anawen, Town of Rochester.
That appears to be everybody on mine.
Thank you all. Brian, communications and announcements.
Sure, I have a few that I can share right now. This evening in the town of Woodstock at 6 p.m. will be a public meeting regarding proposed side path on Route 212. The town Complete Streets Advisory Committee, with the support of the town supervisor, is applying for Transportation Alternative Program funding. This would be in addition to the significant bridge work that New York State DOT is already performing in this area. This would extend a side path out to Bearsville. It is a proposal. There is no funding secured at this time. I'll be attending the meeting. I believe there'll be a representative, Mark Kruk, project manager from DOT, will be there, as well as the town's consultants. So that's a great opportunity to learn more about that proposed project. Municipalities' highest elected officials should have received a letter from New York State DOT regarding roadway departure funds. This is a re-release of funding that was first made available last spring. Statewide, there was $90 million made available to communities to apply for specific roadway departure countermeasures. Of that, roughly 60% went unspent. There's still 56 million remaining. So it's a re-release of that remaining 56 million. There is significant documentation and guidance online if you are interested in applying. I can say, and Chris can probably say even more, it's not an easy application process. I think the remaining funds speak to that. The source of funding is actually the Highway Safety Improvement Program. It's a complicated process to determine what first road segments are eligible, and then determining what countermeasures are eligible, and then determining the cost of those countermeasures. So if you have questions, you can certainly ask us. We can try to lead you in the right direction, but I don't think we can assist with preparing applications, unfortunately.
Anything else, Brian?
And finally, the current the state fiscal year 26-27 Unified Planning Work Program, UCTC received an acceptance letter for that. And we also received our acceptance letter for the 2026-2030 Transportation Improvement Program. We'll talk more about those documents later on in the agenda under MPO 101. That's it.
Thank you. Item 5 on new business. Item A, draft UCTC resolution 2026-05 memorandum of understanding, Mid Hudson Valley Transportation Management Area for the Newburgh, New York urban area. Brian?
Are we looking for a motion for discussion?
No, let's go through
Okay.
it first.
Sure. So as I think everyone knows, the UCTC is also part of the Mid Hudson Valley Transportation Management Area, which includes Dutchess County Transportation Council and the Orange County Transportation Council. It's very timely in that we're doing MPO 101 because we'll be talking about the TMA, the Transportation Management Area, in great detail during that presentation. The last time we had a memorandum of understanding agreed upon, I believe, was 2006. Quite a bit has changed in that period of time. We're not required to update the memorandum of understanding in any routine fashion. Once is enough, apparently. But we figured Dutchess County has changed its name since that time. It used to be the Poughkeepsie Dutchess Transportation Council. Of course, we're under very different Surface Transportation Authorization Act, and some circumstances regarding our boundaries have changed. So we thought it was a good time to revisit the memorandum of understanding. If you go through attachment 1, pages 3, 4, and 5, that's the actual memorandum. It will need signatures of our chairs for each transportation council, as well as the New York State DOT Region 8 Director, Julianne Fuda. So each transportation council will be moving this same resolution forward in this next weeks to come. It's also presently under review by the county attorney. Not sure if we've received any comments.
I have a motion to approve.
So moved, Semley.
Thanks, Emma. Do I have a second?
Quigley, second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Questions? Hearing none. Any in opposition? Any abstentions? So carried. Thank you. Item B, draft resolution 2026 amendment to the UCTC federal fiscal year 2026-2030 transportation improvement program to amend New York State Department of Transportation NICE PIN number 881584 as shown in attachment 1. Brian?
Yes, thanks, Dennis. The Region 8 did submit a large batch of amendments to the UCTC back in February, actually probably back in January, most of which were administrative modifications that could be done internally. Although there were 2 actions that were pulled and set aside by Dennis and I because we thought that they raised to the level that required a little more scrutiny and review by the Transportation Council. So Resolution 2026-6 looks at a culvert replacement project that was on the previously approved TIP for $5.7 million for 3 culverts. They carry streams in the towns of Plattekill and Lloyd in Ulster County. So those projects were expanded somewhat, and just over $3 million was added to the project in state and federal funding. Because that funding did come off of the Mid-Hudson South Transportation Improvement Program, we probably could have justified this as an administrative modification because the money was already on a previously approved TIP. But for the purposes of transparency and discussion, we thought it would be a good idea do a full resolution, put it before the board so the council could ask questions if they had any, and we'll do a full tip amendment for this project.
Thank you, Brian. We have a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. Do I have a second?
I'll second Nowen.
Thank you. Have a motion and second. Any additional discussion?
Yeah, it looks like you're doing more culverts. Down from 3 to 7.
Yeah.
Makes sense for the increase.
Well, thank you, Ed. Any objections? Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? So carried. Thank you. Item C, draft UCTC resolution 2026-07, amendment to the UCTC federal fiscal year FFY 2026-2030 Transportation Improvement Program TIP to amend the New York State Department of Transportation NISDOT PIN number 887754 as shown in attachment 1. Brian?
Yes, similar to the previous resolution, these funds were already on a previously approved TIF in the Mid-Hudson South region. But now they're being moved onto the UCTC TIF. The project is described in attachment 1 will resurface Route 209 and 55 from Lippman Park to Main Street to bring it into a state of good repair in the towns of Rochester and Woolworthing. The total amount of funding is $6,325,000 and a mix of federal and state funding. Similar with the previous resolution, this would be a new project added to the TIP.
I'm sorry. No, it's fine. I'm duplicating the display so I can send a chat message. Everyone can still see.
Okay.
Thank you, sorry. That requires approval by the technical committee, 15-day public comment period, and then final approval by the policy committee.
Thank you, Brian. Do we have a motion?
I'll
Approve?
motion.
Thank you. Supervisor, much appreciated. Do I have a second?
Second, Leanne.
Thank you, Leanne. I have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Hearing none. Any opposed?
I only hear it from you out there.
I'm sorry.
There was Supervisor Pecora from Town of Esopus.
Supervisor, were you opposed?
No.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. No one's opposed. Any abstention? So carried. Thank you very much. Item C.
So it means
D.
I'm sorry. Yeah, my pen is not working for some reason. Draft UCTC resolution. Thank you, Brian. 2026-08, apportionment of the federal fiscal year 2025 Federal Transit Administration Section 5307/5340 formula funds attributable to the Kingston urbanized area. Brian?
Yes, thank you. The FTA did release its apportionments for the United States and the various urbanized areas that are eligible to receive funding for transit. This funding is attributable to the Kingston urbanized area. And if you look on page 3 under the attachment, the listing of apportionments for all the small urbanized areas in New York State are shown there. Kingston is set to receive $2,223,631 through the 2025 FTA Section 5307 program. In the past, we had 2 eligible providers in Ulster County, Kingston City Bus and Ulster County Area Transit, and we would develop an agreement to split those funds. And of course, today, there is only one eligible recipient to receive the funding, and that is Ulster County government with its operator, Ulster County Area Transit. Therefore, they would receive 100% of the funding for transit purposes. The 5307 funds can be used for operating, project administration, or for capital purchases.
Okay. Item D. Any additional, a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion. It's Emily.
Thanks, Emily. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Pine. I have a motion, a second. Any additional discussion? Hearing none. Any opposed? Any abstentions? So carried. Thank you, Brian. I need more paper, I think. So, item E, MPO 101. Oh, you're in for a treat.
Before we do MPO 101, could I make a request that we cover other old business first?
Sure. Thank you, Brian.
All right, thank you.
Moving to item number 6 on the agenda, other old business, NISDOT New York State Association updates.
Sure, I attended the statewide directors meeting last Friday, and there was a lot of interesting information that was covered that I thought I'd share a few items. Most of which are updates from New York State DOT's main office. The New York State statewide active transportation plan is nearing completion. There'll be a series of public involvement opportunities to learn about the final draft plan. They'll be scheduled for later this spring and summer. It doesn't appear there'll be any in-person meetings anywhere in Mid-Hudson, but those meetings will be available to attend virtually. So we'll be sending bulletins out about that opportunity as soon as it becomes available. I mentioned roadway departure funds. The New York State DOT is also embarking on its update of the New York State Rail Plan. This is the first update in well over a decade to that plan. It will look at both passenger and freight rail movement in New York State, volumes, safety issues, crossing issues will be covered in great detail through that planning process. So we look forward to participating in that as well, especially considering the rail that's hosted in Ulster County, the West Shore Railroad. Just a background regarding the Transportation Improvement Program. When you see these documents in the resolution that show the TIP projects, all the various phases and schedules and funding, those are developed with a program called eSTIP, or at least they have been for the past 2 decades. eSTIP is now gone. It has been blacked out, and the New York State DOT is transitioning to a new program called Project Tracker. So we have been participating in training. Chris is rather adept, fortunately, at using Project Tracker. It's a new and improved system for tracking our TIP projects and reporting back. So hopefully that will go smoothly, but it is a transition in technology. There can be hiccups along the way. We'll keep folks posted on that, especially those with local projects that might require changes or amendments. I don't see any major implications. Apparently it's an improved system from what we understand. So it actually may make things go more smoothly in the future. And then finally, the last update that we received from our state and regional partners was that the Office of the State Comptroller will be conducting the statewide audit of the New York State and local bridge program. So we were told to expect a call as our role as the MPO for Ulster County, and given that we distribute a significant amount of local bridge funds, and also local sponsors that have accepted federal funding for the construction of bridges may also expect calls from the Office of the State Comptroller. From what we understand, they just want to learn how the program functions, what works well and what might not work well. So I just want to make folks aware. That's all the information I have on that, but I think we can expect more to come in the months ahead.
Brian, on the active transportation plan, You said that there's no meetings proposed in the Mid-Hudson.
Not that I'm aware. I think they said limited statewide meetings where they were talking the New York metropolitan area, the capital region, and maybe one additional region. That's what was announced.
Okay.
Well, they haven't announced anything. That's what they're considering.
Okay, maybe we should make a request that they hold a meeting in the Mid-Hudson. I mean, it's not like we're a very active transportation area. So I think maybe we can make that request. Anything else on the updates, Brian?
That's all I have there.
UCTC off-system bridge funds.
I'd just like to remind everyone that on the transportation improvement program, we carry unprogrammed funds in the amount of $7.2 million in federal aid for off-system bridge funding. Those are bridges off the national highway system. So essentially local bridges are eligible for that. We have heard some interest from private consultants to wondering when we're going to release those funds. If there are specific urgent bridge needs among our local municipalities, we'd like to hear about that. Otherwise, we're trying to make a determination whether to release the funds now through our own selection process or wait for the next Bridge New York call and couple those funds with Bridge New York. There is might be some confusion in that the funding that we hold is eligible for 80% federal reimbursement, 20% local share. Bridge New York funding is typically 95% state and federal reimbursement with 5% local share. So it's a bit of a dilemma. If we are to release our funds, you might have a better deal later on if you wait for Bridge New York. So at this point, we've just been sort of sitting put with the funding. But if there's an urgent need, we'd like to hear about that.
Is there a timeline that you can only hold on to it?
No, these funds would be good for at least certainly until the next tip update for 2 years to be obligated. Are there any comments or questions from council members relative to that announcement? Anybody aware that they have a local bridge problem that they're interested in trying to fund?
Maybe.
All right.
Well, feel free to reach out to me or Dennis if you are wondering about a bridge, its condition and its eligibility. We're happy to answer that question.
Thank you, Brian.
Sure.
Mid-Hudson Valley TMA 2025 certification review.
All three MPOs in the Mid-Hudson Valley did undergo certification review in September of 2025. The draft report was released. We provided just technical revisions to that report, and we're awaiting the final report. One of the recommendations that was given is recommending that UCTC update its operating procedures, and we'll talk more about that in the NPO 101 presentation. But we're awaiting the final certification review before we take any specific.
Well, the good news, there was no recommended deficiencies in the report. No deficiencies noted in the report, as I recall.
That's right.
That's like our financial plan, though.
And yeah, we have a commendation for our financial plan in the report. Any questions about that? I mean, it's a fairly significant milestone to go through for a small MPO to go through a technical review that occurs. We're only required to do that because of our association with the TMA. Otherwise, we would not go through these training reviews. We would generally self-certify. But because of our association with the TMA, which is Dutchess and Orange and Ulster, we end up having to go through a fairly rigorous federal review process.
I do have a comment online here, but you can read it. It just says from the system, just says SOFIS has a bridge that is a temporary bridge from the county overlaying on it. However, how do we proceed with the funding request?
Yeah, Supervisor, you and I have spoken about that. It's a good question. The Valley Road Bridge.
Yeah, we're aware of it. Yeah.
We are aware of it. I think that the next step is to maybe send us your latest engineering report for that bridge, so we can have the latest update on the status of of the condition of that bridge. If that information is available, and we can have a additional discussion offline.
Yeah, we'll take it offline with you, Supervisor. Don't mind. Just quickly, Ed, are you aware of that, the Valley Road Bridge in Esopus, and they have a loaner from you on a, okay,
Yes.
all right, no issues with the loaner, I guess, is my question.
No, I mean, there's not a time frame on it or anything.
Okay, all right, all right, thank you. Next item on the agenda. Thank you, Supervisor. Next item on the agenda is NISDOT West of Hudson Transit Study. This is interesting.
I have no information to add other than we're very curious, as everyone else is, about the initiation of the West of Hudson Transit Study by the New York State Department of Transportation. We understand that a consultant has been hired to do that work, and we look forward to participating.
Yeah, we've had two different meetings and conversations with NISDOT relative to transit work that we've done. Remember, the MPO did a route optimization plan for a transit system. We've had conversations with them. We've also had conversations because this MPO provides funding through the TMA to private carriers, transit carriers in the region. In our instance, it's Trailways. In other instances, it's Coach USA. And there's another company out of Dutchess County that also gets funding as well. And my sense is that these services, while important, are not interconnected well. And what we're trying to see is whether the department is going to step in and take a look at how these funds are used and see if they can provide a better connected service. The service that's provided through Trailways is the only service that I'm aware of that goes through an RFP process. The other services do not. So it'd be really interesting to see what the study recommends. I want to remind the council members that the TMA did something called the Connect Hudson study that also looked at the corundum of trying to move people between the activity centers in the region. And Ulster County Area Transit is it's the only transit system that's publicly owned, that's in the region, and has operating authority outside of its county. We have operating authority into Dutchess County, and we run services into Poughkeepsie from both New Paltz and from Kingston. And we have operating authority in Orange County into Newburgh area, and we run that service from Rosendale into New Paltz and down into the Newburgh area as well. So we're looking forward to see what happens with regard to this study. But we are not seeing a lot of transparency right now in terms of what its scope is or what it's going to take on. Any questions? Anything else, Brian?
No, that's all I have.
Great. Now we're back to the treat that I brought. NPO 101. So we're going to discuss what an NPO is, how it's created, what its responsibilities are, what its called up for documents are, how we're formed, the membership of the NPO, and a lot of others. And I would hope that we end up asking a lot of questions. If you have them, please ask them, because Brian is going to get tired of talking.
Right. I would recommend, if individuals have questions during the presentation, to please raise their hand, and we'll definitely pause to go into greater detail or try to provide clarification. I'd also say that if you have a question for follow-up and you would like us to go into greater detail at another point in time, please send me that request offline, and I'm happy to provide, or Dennis, greater information about any one of these processes that we go through. I'm happy to do that. Just, would you mind getting the door?
Yeah.
So I have about 30 slides to go through here. I'm not going to go into great detail, and I do want to leave time for discussion. Please go ahead, Chris. So we did develop this presentation several years ago. It was with assistance from our counterparts in Dutchess County Transportation Council and our statewide NISAMPO friends. So let's just get right into it. Who are we? The Transportation Council is the designated metropolitan planning organization for Ulster County. We were created, we became eligible to become an MPO after Census 2000. And after a lot of the administrative work had been done, we were established by order of the governor of New York State on April 30th, 2003. Metropolitan planning organizations are required for any census designated urbanized area of 50,000 or more. So it was at that point after Census 2000 that the Kingston urbanized area grew to the threshold of meeting that requirement. The purpose is to establish transportation policies, planning, and decision-making, to establish a forum for transportation policies, plan, and decision-making. And there's something that we refer to as the 3C process, the continuing cooperative and comprehensive planning process, which is written into the metropolitan planning rule in federal regulations. That's a pretty important phrase that you will hear from time to time. Right now, as far as I'm aware, there are about 420 MPOs nationwide. UCTC, last I checked, was ranked 414 out of those 420 NPOs. So we are the sixth smallest, by one measure anyway, of population, sixth smallest NPO in the United States. I think Walla Walla, Washington is a little smaller than us. And
Watertown has got to be close to us, right?
yeah, it is. There's a lot of different ways you can slice it. It's not just population, but by that measure alone, we are one of the smallest NPOs. Go on to the next slide. Thanks. So the UCTC is hosted by the Ulster County Planning Department through a host agency agreement. So Christopher and I, along with time shared between Dennis and other planning department staff, account for 2.5 full-time employees working for the UCTC. We have, as you'll find out, and as you probably already know, really close partnership and cooperation with the New York State Department of Transportation, both Region 8 and main office, as well as our Federal Highway and Federal Transit Administration partners. And of course, we're part of the larger TMA. But I think an even more important question to take a larger step back is, why do MPOs exist in the first place? That goes back to the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1962. During the 1950s, there were several very large highway acts under the Eisenhower administration that we all know created the Eisenhower interstate system. And these were massive investments in transportation infrastructure in the United States, nationwide, that had a profound effect on land use and movement and transportation throughout the country. By 1962, Congress had decided it might be time to start planning for the implementation of this massive amount of federal aid that we're providing to the states. And so they came up with the construct of the Metropolitan Planning Organization. And the rules were the same as they are now. And if you had an urbanized area of 50,000 or more, you had to have an MPO. And that's when the continuing cooperative and comprehensive 3C planning process came into existence. One of the main reasons, you could hit the button, I think a good example of why the MPO process is important is because it provides transparency into how federal transportation aid can be used, and it creates an important process that involves the public in the use and expenditure of those funds, and really establishes a certain amount of local control and say over how those projects are developed and implemented. Those of you who can recognize the photo of the individual here, the power broker, Robert Moses, there was a time in the not too distant past where these types of decisions were highly centralized and had very little say by the public at large. So things like Uniform Procedures Act for eminent domain and seizure of property, did not really exist, and it wasn't a far cry to see a highway being announced through your backyard if you were a landowner and not receive due process or compensation or very much notice for those projects. It was a different time. And I would argue that the metropolitan planning process is one remedy to that situation to make sure that local municipalities, communities, neighborhoods, and individuals have a greater say in the use of federal transportation aid. 14 MPOs statewide that are all shown here. Some MPOs are multi-county MPOs. Buffalo, Genesee Transportation Council, one that I had a lot of familiarity with in the past is 9 counties. Ulster, of course, is one. Elmira is one. Ithaca Tompkins, 1 county. Then there are other multi-county MPOs. The Watertown up north is the newest MPO in New York State.
We are somewhat unique in the fact that there are 3 MPOs in this region that exist within a transportation management area. And all of those MPOs are founded in or hosted by the planning departments in the respective counties. A lot of those other multi-county MPOs are hosted within transit agencies.
Transit authorities.
Transit authorities.
That's right.
So, so it is a fairly unique situation, and I think quite beneficial to have an MPO housed within the planning department.
Some other important points. We are a member of the New York State Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations, which has been recognized nationally as one of the best or most well-organized functioning associations, and as a good example of how we can cooperate together. Go to the next slide. We take off the top of our statewide planning fund allocation $200,000 and provide it to a consultant that goes under contract every 2 years to help manage the association and the work that we do. So on a weekly basis, there are at least 9 different working groups that the MPO's statewide staff are working together cooperatively. A member of each of the MPO is typically a chair of the respective working group. And we're talking about these issues and problem solving statewide transportation, data problems, planning issues, and developing solutions and sharing our knowledge statewide with our federal and state partners. These meetings are occurring every week. And these are the current roster of working groups. And we do try to meet in person for each working group. Of course, with a small MPO, we try to attend as many as we can. Some working groups are more important to us than others, but we do try to make sure that we touch base between Dennis, Chris, and myself on each working group. And there is a website for NISAMPLE. If you just Google us, there's quite a bit of information background online on the association. Now to the TMA, the Mid-Hudson Valley Transportation Management Area. What is a TMA? A TMA is required, similar to an MPO, is required for an urbanized area of 50,000 or more. A transportation management area is required for an urbanized area of 200,000 or more. And if you look at the map on the screen, the Poughkeepsie-Newburgh Transportation Management Area is stretches between Orange, Dutchess, and into southeastern Ulster County. So because of that census urbanized area, we are part of the Mid-Hudson Valley TMA. The population of the 3 counties together, the latest estimate is 891,612 for the 3 counties together. The population within just the urbanized area portion of that map is just over 314,000. So TMAs, federal government, US DOT recognize pose very unique challenges when it comes to provision of safe, equitable, efficient transportation. So we're required to do another of steps, one of which is the congestion management process. That's something that is updated roughly every 5 years. And you'll be learning and hearing about that update, which has been ongoing internally. Later this year, we'll be presenting some of the facts and figures of that congestion management planning process, where we look at congestion corridors throughout the 3-county region, prioritize them, and identify potential solutions for mitigation and management of congestion. Air quality conformity is not something that we talk about very much in Ulster County. We are in air quality compliance, so it's not a requirement. Orange County, on the other hand, has had those additional requirements, and they are significant. There's many additional steps that you have to take if you are a non-compliant MPO for air quality. They do provide additional funding, but there are also quite a few additional planning steps that need to be taken if you're in that category. And the third area is cooperation with regional transit. And you see that is probably one of the most prominent items on our agendas every year is distribution of transit funding that is made eligible through the TMA to the local providers of transit. So those are the 3 main areas that the TMA gets into, but we can cooperate on any variety of issues as long as it's within the parameters of transportation planning. And we do meet at least monthly, staff, I should mention also, often more than that when you consider the nice sample working groups. Just to focus on, again, our urbanized areas, this map shows the variety of urbanized areas as they cross over into Ulster County. The darker shaded areas are the census designated urbanized areas. And then the US DOT requires MPOs to smooth those areas out that creates a FHWA urbanized area, which is relevant specifically to transportation planning and functional classification of roadways. But the 2 areas are separate and overlap, or they don't overlap, they meet in and around the New Paltz area. So that's the broad overview of some of the geographic implications of being an MPO. Now I'm going to talk more about some of the procedural issues associated with this MPO. Our governance is outlined in great detail in the UCTC operating procedures. If you don't know where those are located, they're prominently available. If you go to the UCTC website under the About Us tab, they're linked right there, operating procedures. And within the operating procedures are also our public participation procedures, which is simply 1-page outline of the steps that we will take to involve the public in our various plans and processes. It has been noted previously that the US DOT, through our CERT review, would like us to update these operating procedures. So as soon as that certification review is published, we will begin that process and probably ask for a subcommittee of members to join us in the review of those operating procedures.
So I just want to comment on the operating procedures because I think it's really important that everyone know that the operating procedures basically set out the way the actions are taken and fairly unique. The operating procedures here basically say that the MPO operates on consensus. So when we look at these resolutions that you're passing, it's a consensus of affected parties. If anyone is opposed, the resolution doesn't pass. It's not a majority. So we have been fortunate over the years we've been in existence. We've never had a resolution not pass because of lack of consensus.
Regarding membership, there are 14 voting members at any given time on the UCTC policy committee. We have 6 permanent voting members that are listed there. The structure of the board was devised in a way to give every municipality a seat at the table for the decision-making process. And we believe the structure reflects that. One other important point is that the chair of the Ulster County Transportation Council is the county executive. The county executive has designated the director of the UCTC to officiate meetings, which is why Dennis runs the meetings. The voting member at the table, however, is the voting proxy, and that's Ed Pine at DPW, typically. Just to make that point of clarification. So we have our 6 permanent voting members, and then to involve all of our municipalities, we have 7 rotating 2-year voting members. There's no necessarily association or partnership between these pairings. It's just the way it panned out, I think, to give some level of balance. The current voting members are shown there in bold.
You know, if you could go back a slide, I just want to go, the reason for this original membership, I want you to think about the map that was up, which basically showed the original urbanized area that got us to be an MPO, literally was the Kingston area, and then areas to the north in the town of Ulster and extending into Saugerties. And in order for us to essentially decide where the MPO would be housed and who would run the MPO, we needed an agreement from all of those entities in order for us to essentially move forward and have the governor authorize the MPO to be formed. So that original MPO area, that original census area that got us to be an MPO, was the reason for those permanent members. It wasn't a haphazard decision. It was literally those individual communities had to agree together in order for us to become an MPO.
And we also have the unique situation where we have the 7-1 rural voting membership. So our smallest municipalities do have a seat at the table. Those 7 municipalities, through the Association of Town Supervisors, designate the voting proxy for the 7-1, which of course is Supervisor Nowen through the town of Rochester.
And again, the reason for that, if you go back to the map if you look at the areas that are part of the TMA, those communities essentially are members that rotate membership within the council. And then, excuse me, and then those communities that don't have urbanized areas essentially form the rural 7-1. So there was a methodology behind this. It wasn't arbitrary in terms of who was a member and who essentially ended up being a rotating member and who ended up being a rural member.
Yeah, Emily's got her hand up.
Okay, sure. Question from Emily.
Quick one, and it's maybe kind of a dumb one, but I'm going to ask it. The funds for UCTC, it's only for spaces in the urbanized areas, right? So it's not for a bridge work in one of the unurbanized communities, is it?
No, the funds are assigned to the county as a whole. And I think as we get further on, what ends up happening is that we adopted, the Transportation Council adopted a planning area as the entire county. So the entire county is adopted as a planning area, and the funds are available to the area as a whole. But they're also dependent upon the type of funds. Certain funds can only be used in urban areas. Certain funds can only be used in non-urban areas. The example we just gave you is the off-system bridge fund can only be used that are on bridges that are off the federal aid system.
Right, and those
Thanks.
rules are defined in the Federal Register. We often have to go into it and figure it out ourselves. Non-voting advisory members that we talk to from time to time. Next slide, please. So just to give you an overview of the hierarchy here, the MPO is the policy committee. The MPO is not the staff. The policy committee is the MPO. And they're the ones who are the final decision-making authority for the decisions being made by the MPO. We were also asked to provide a little more insight into the various committees that comprise the MPO. So the policy committee is the executive body, it's the highest elected officials. In larger MPOs, you typically would have, well, before I do that, we also have the technical committee, which is advisory to the policy. This is the technical committee meeting today. as I was about to say, in larger NPOs, I've observed you would typically see your highway superintendents designated as the technical committee as a member, or maybe a municipal engineer attending the technical committee. It's at this committee where we're really rolling up our sleeves, going over these resolutions in detail, asking questions and clarification, and sorting out all the details. And then once the technical committee provides agreement on the details of the resolutions or whatever information we're reviewing, it then gets forwarded to the policy committee for final decision. So the technical committee is open to all eligible voting members in Ulster County. So every municipality in Ulster County is a member of the technical committee. We typically only see those members who are serving on the policy committee at the time. But I, again, want to stress that every member, every municipality in Ulster County is by right a member of the UCTC technical committee. Of course, you have UCTC staff that are serving tech and policy. We also have, if you look in the operating procedures, an administrative committee, which is consistent of our New York State DOT representatives. When we have day-to-day decision making regarding small budgetary amendments, like on the transportation improvement program, or small, less than 25% changes to the budget in the Unified Planning Work Program, we work very closely with Region 8 and Central Office on how we make those changes. Virtually nothing happens in a vacuum at UCTC. Everything is reviewed very closely with our state and federal partners. We have the ability to make additional committees, by the way, which hasn't been done in quite some time. The TIP subcommittee is an example of that. When we update the TIP, we usually have a subcommittee of representatives to go through the TIP update process. But there have been other subcommittees for safety and transit in the past, and that could happen again in the future. So just another final review of the committees. The UCTC Policy Committee, Jen Metzger as county executive is our chair. It's the final decision-making body of the UCTC. And the membership is laid out there as well. The technical committee, of course, includes all current and alternating voting members and advisory non-voting members. And then finally, the administrative committee, UCTC planning department staff and relevant NISDOT Region 8 and main office staff, as well as the federal highway and FTA representatives as necessary, depending on the nature of the decision that needs to be made. So I'm nearing conclusion here. Just to give everyone a broad overview, the rules and work of the MPO are dictated by the most recent Surface Transportation Authorization Act. Within those authorization acts are the metropolitan planning rules. And you look at, sometimes they make minor changes. In fact, they always make minor changes as each Surface Transportation Authorization Act gets written into law. So the recent history going back to 1991, IST, then you had T21, then you had the famous Safety Lou, followed by MAP 21 and the FAST Act in 2015. It was under MAP 21 where we started to have the performance management rules that we sometimes deal with at this table.
And you have now, what you have to do.
Now we're in the IIJA, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the bipartisan infrastructure law, which is valid only through October of 2026. It's very quickly sunsetting. And we have heard some rumors about its predecessor, or its replacement rather, the BASICS Act, the Bridge and Safety Infrastructure for Community Success. Some of the changes that we can expect, they're significant from what we hear. Nothing's final until it's signed into law, of course. But they're looking at significant increases in metropolitan planning program funding. So this increases to funds to the MPO. Strengthen flexible formula programs like the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program for local and regional project delivery. They being Congress, are seriously discussing providing direct formula-based federal funding directly to counties, which would be a first in a long time. Now that those funds are directed to the state Department of Transportation, and through various formulas are allocated to the regions or the MPOs, they don't typically get directly allocated to a county. So it'll be very interesting to see how that pans out for counties like Ulster. And a few other changes that we'll keep you posted on in the months ahead. This is all preliminary that we're hearing through the National Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations.
Yeah, I would say that historically, New York State has always advocated that it did not get its fair share of infrastructure funds through transportation programming. And New York State is one of the few states that uses some of its infrastructure highway funds to actually fund transit.
So I just have a few slides left, and we're really now getting into the meat and potatoes of what an MPO does, but we do this with you guys on a regular basis. So I wasn't going to get into great detail because I think you're pretty familiar with these documents and the process behind them, but let's go through them. And if there are any questions, we'd love to hear them. Every MPO, big or small, is required to prepare three main documents: the long-range transportation plan, the transportation improvement program, which is the capital component of for highway and transit improvements, and then the unified planning work program, which is a planning component. And as we already covered, if you're in a TMA, you have to do a congestion management process as well. So the long-range plan in Ulster County has a 25-year planning horizon. They're required to actually only have a 20-year planning horizon, but so that it's uniform with our partners in Dutchess and Orange, we have a 25-year planning horizon. All three of us do. Everything within the long-range transportation plan is intended to influence and govern the scope and content of the unified planning work program and the transportation improvement program. Just hit the next animation. So the UPWP and TIP has to conform to the goals of the long-range transportation plan. And you could even make the argument that the plans that are developed in the unified planning work program will directly influence and dictate what capital projects belong on the transportation improvement program. Doesn't always work that way, but that's the structure and intent of the structure here. UCTC, our current long-range transportation plan, was approved in September of 2025. It's called Mobility 2050. It's available online. Again, we have actually, it's a 25-year planning horizon. And it has to be a fiscally constrained document with a financial plan, and it includes a detailed plan of projects. Any project on the tip must conform with the long-range transportation plan. This document is updated every 5 years in Ulster County. I'd just like to point out that in this iteration of the long-range transportation plan, for the first time, we put a lot of effort into creating an online document. So if you go to the LRTP page, you can have the traditional print PDF of the document, but there's also an interactive document that you can click through and get all the information and resources that are available. If you're interested in bridge condition, safety information, non-motorized active transportation, the financial plan, all those infographics are there to peruse. And I think it's a very, very nice compendium of the LRTP. Then we have the Unified Planning Work Program. We actually just passed the Unified Planning Work Program, so everyone should be pretty familiar with it. That's our annual budget. It runs on the state fiscal year. And every year we get a grant from the Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration, specifically for planning purposes only. And this is how we develop the plans and the day-to-day operations the MPO does. Just a few important points about the UPWP. Projects can be requested by communities. Every fall in October, we do a call for planning projects. We love to hear about proposals or needs or areas of interest coming directly from municipalities and are happy to discuss those. And if we feel it gets to that level, we can program funding to do consultant-based studies in your municipality. There's a heavy emphasis on the land use and transportation connection through all of these studies. But again, these funds can only be used for planning purposes and not for any engineering purposes. Most recently, our current UPWP or the recent UPWPs, we finished the 9W corridor management plan in the town of Ulster. UCAT route optimization plan was a significant effort that's going to inform some of our activities in the years ahead. Kingston Railroad Safety Plan, 3 major planning projects that we recently completed. About to be underway this year, the Ulster and Albany Ave Corridor Management Plan. We have a contract nearly executed to do that work. Project will be starting roughly in May. We will be doing an update to the road safety plan, which is a countywide analysis of crashes to provide prescriptive information on where we should be targeting some of our safety funding in those areas that have the most frequent and severe crashes. And we will be updating an active transportation plan and beginning that process near the end of the year. Of course, technical assistance to UCAT is ongoing with regard to identifying issues of need as they work through their route optimization plan and some of their capital issues. And as I mentioned, we will be debuting or presenting the congestion management plan results later this year to members. Other priorities include updating our operating procedures, day-to-day tip monitoring. Maintaining that document is a pretty significant effort and takes a lot of time. And also direct support to the Ulster County Traffic Safety Board. I sit as the coordinator on that board and help manage that day to day. Just a few more slides remaining. The Transportation Improvement Program is probably the most important piece of documentation that we manage because it is the actual implementation of capital projects in Ulster County. All federal transportation aid, if it's to be used in Ulster County by law, has to be published in a transportation improvement program. And the reason behind that is to provide transparency and clarification and, again, direct participation and knowledge for local communities in the transportation planning process. And we update this document roughly every 3 years. The whole state does it the whole time at the same time. There are 14 individual tips. Every MPO has its own tip. And then there's the statewide STIP. So all 14 tips get rolled up into the statewide transportation improvement program. The types of funding that we include on our tip include Federal Highway Administration funds, Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, off-system bridge funding, National Highway Performance Programming funding is what the New York State DOT will typically use for large corridor projects. FTA funding. We had a resolution on our agenda today for FTA funding. And then a large variety of other discretionary federal aid sources, primarily Transportation Alternatives Program funding. But there are other programs as well, and those programs are dictated by the various Surface Transportation Authorization Act. Each program, depending on what the program is, it has different matching requirements, and all those matches are shown in the tables in the Transportation Improvement Program. This is a breakdown of the funding that is currently programmed on the UCTC tip. It's $170 million in federal aid for design and implementation in the next 5-year horizon. So it's a significant capital investment in our infrastructure. We will, on any given UCTC meeting have a tip amendment that has to go through an approval process. You might be wondering how we determine what is an internal minor amendment that we can do internally versus a full resolution. Those rules are dictated first by the operating procedures, but the operating procedures actually refers to the tip document, to this table. Table 7 outlines the steps that we review, and I reference this often to determine whether a potential amendment to the tip requires a full action of the board and public review, or if it's something that just Chris, Dennis, and I can take care of internally. These are the steps that have to be reviewed. Typically, it comes down to the amount of money. If it's over $500,000, it's going to require a full amendment. If it's a new project to be added to the tip, that's a full amendment. If a project for some reason is going to be removed from the tip, that's an amendment as well. And all of those require public notice and comment period. We're required to publish a map, including the locations of all the projects within included in the tip. And that map is shown on screen. And at the end of the day, and this is, I think, really what we'd like to try to drive home to all of our local sponsors and the community at large, the MPO, personally, what I think we're really most proud of is turning plans into projects. Not all of our plans end up in brick and mortar, shovels in the ground, but a lot of them do. And we'd like to highlight those in the Transportation Improvement Program and in the Long Range Transportation Plan, all the many great important projects that will be improving movement and mobility and transportation in our county start here at the MPO. And that MPO is driven by our local decision makers. And here's just a sample of some of the projects that are currently programmed on the tip that we can expect to be implemented within the next 5 years. The Kingston Flatbush and Foxhall project, TAP project, that project will be going to construction, I believe, by the end of this calendar year. You'll start to see some of the infrastructure work begin. The Ulster Boyces Lane railroad crossing signalization work. Route 299 Shoulders in New Paltz and Gardner is very close to having design approval. The Hurley Mountain Road Bridge is a fantastic $7 or $8 million county bridge project. Shandaken UND Rail Trail is a project being managed by the Planning Department, Dennis and Kristen Wilson, for that 2.5 mile section of trail in Shandaken. Route 212 Woodstock, the bridges. Washington Avenue in Kingston, project not yet implemented or not yet initiated by DOT. This is a $14 million investment that the DOT is making on Washington Avenue in Kingston. We look forward to getting that project underway. And then let's not forget, the city of Kingston has a nearly $30 million investment in state, federal, and local funds in its waterfront, called the Kingston Weaving the Waterfront Project, that was awarded through a federal RAISE grant. And that project will begin, at least the preliminary design, later this year. So, and then our transit projects that we don't want to overlook as well. Transit electrification, implementation of the new route optimization plan, and we can expect some facility improvements as well in the next 3 to 5 years at UCAT. That's the presentation. It's a lot. When I went through MPO 101, it was a 3-day presentation for my training. So we really condensed it down to 40 minutes. I hope it begins to answer some of the questions.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
Any questions from anyone? Okay, hearing none. Well, thank you all for coming today. I don't think we have any other business. When's the next meeting of the Traffic Safety Board, Brian?
The Traffic Safety Board is to be determined. They typically would meet the first Monday of April, but that is the day after Easter. I will be traveling that day, so we may postpone it by 1 week. We're working on determining that. And those meetings are published on the Ulster County Legislative calendar.
Thank you. Any other final business to come before the council? Hearing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.